imagine, if you will, 112 years and 2 days ago, the most earth-shattering news which shook the world, over 1,500 souls lost and several hundred unaccounted for. All I could say is welcome. Imagine being on a cruise, a special kind of cruise, and you don't think nothing can go wrong, but something does. Imagine being on that cruise and wondering if you're going to get out alive. This has been established as one of the biggest disasters in history. Still talked about today. So many movies have been made about this disaster, including the one I'm going to review today because it's the most popular one. And it was in theaters for a good long time. Let's sail aboard.
Let's take a journey back to 1912, where this ship was supposedly unsinkable. Welcome aboard the RMS Titanic.
You remember the year 1997. A certain movie swept audiences away. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes long, but it's so well paced it doesn't make you think how long it actually is. A story about one of the biggest disasters in history. To quote a certain line, "Iceberg, right ahead!" That's right. The film is Titanic. Was written and directed by James Cameron. Stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Bill Paxton, Gloria Stewart, and Frances Fisher, to name a few. Of course, you know what the film is about. The doomed Titanic. The boat, the luxury cruise that they said no would never sink. And unfortunately, fate had other plans. Because if you know the history, here it is. I'm showing you the actual newspaper, the original newspaper for the Boston Daily Globe that told the story. But the film itself is, it's based on a real event, but of course, some parts are fictionalized. The film is mainly about an underwater search crew goes on the sunken Titanic in search for a valuable diamond that could make them millionaires. But what they find instead is a painting of a young lady, and it makes news. And they get a call from an elderly woman named Rose, who claims to be the woman in the painting. But they don't know whether or not to believe her story, but they listen anyway. And of course, a flashbacks ensue of a young Rose is put in an arranged marriage to a billionaire named Cal Hoakley, and he's played by Billy Zane. A marriage she does not want to be in because she does not love this guy. But it's only pushed in by her mom, played by Frances Fisher, because they're broke and he's a billionaire. And then there's Jack, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, a traveling artist who is poor but happy, and he gets luck when he gets a cruise ticket on the Titanic. Of course, he quotes the most famous line, "I'm the king of the world!" I'm sure a lot of y'all said that one at one point. And then when Rose is about to commit suicide because she's feeling trapped in a situation she can never get out of, Jack comes to her rescue and talks her out of it. And she does save her life because she almost slips. And in a way, it's kind of a reverse Cinderella story. She's going to be rich, but Rose is going to be rich and she's miserable. Jack is poor, but he's happy. And when she gets to know Jack some more, she begins to fall in love with him and discovers there's more to life than money. And of course, you know the doom story of the Titanic. And I gotta say, it was pretty good. I didn't know if James Cameron could ever write this kind of love story, but he wrote it quite well. I always saw him as doing this sci-fi action, but he proved he could do an epic story about a real disaster, and he did it very well. And I gotta say, Leonardo DiCaprio he was well known, but this film blew him up into bigger film status than he already had. I mean, he started getting more bigger roles after this movie. And Kate Winslet. Well, I just knew Kate Winslet from the film Sense and Sensibility, but this film made her an ultimate megastar. She's been in other films after that and been out there and everywhere. They also reteamed 11 years later for Revolutionary Road. And no, it's not a sequel. I'm just kidding. Of course it's not. Anyway. As for the other actors, Billy Zane as Cal Hoakley, the billionaire Rose was going to marry, is good. I mean, he is such a cruel guy. He's the kind of guy who thinks money could buy everything. And the way he treats Rose, he doesn't treat her like a wife. He treats her more like a trophy wife. It's kind of unsettling to watch. And Frances Fisher as her mother, and who would sell her daughter out just to get rich. That's just unfairly to do that. Oh, let's not forget Kathy Bates. I think she's a real person, but I forgot who she plays. But when she comes in, she kind of Molly Brown, right? The unsinkable Molly Brown. I'm just coming back to me. Well, actually, no, my friend's here. He's telling me it, but there are a lot of events that are true and not true about the Titanic. I mean, I could imagine filming the sinking scenes of the water was not the easiest to do. I mean, they had to do the water scenes, and they kept the water warm just so the actors would feel comfortable. It wasn't quite as freezing as it looked on camera. I could imagine it was not an easy scene to film. It probably took a month or months to do it. Because if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. I gotta say, Leonardo and DiCaprio and Kate Winslet have great chemistry. You really believe the love for each other. And the other actors do well too. Bill Paxton, of course, Kathy Bates, and Billy Zane is the Cal Hoakley. He's so menacing. And and there are some things that are true and that aren't true. I'm going to point that out. What is true? Well, the architect Edward Andrews, played by Victor Garber, did go down with the ship. He felt guilty because he didn't should have built a better ship. Felt guilty about it. And the band did play. That was true before they went down with the ship. That was confirmed many times. You could see James Cameron did his homework. But a lot of things I learned that weren't true is Murtaugh, one of the seamen, he was a true person, but he didn't. Spoiler alert: he didn't shoot nobody on the ship, and didn't shoot himself. He actually, from what I hear, he did rescue a lot of people, save a lot of people from drowning. He did go down with the ship, but he didn't go mad. He didn't go mad as it looked on camera. On the film, that part was improvised by James Cameron, of course. Well, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Mike from My Passion, and he's going to tell you more and history of the Titanic. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you very much, Buttercup. So, as I was mentioning a minute ago, I handed him this newspaper, Original Press, 1912. And what I was finding interesting, you were talking about Cal being a billionaire and all that. It made me think at the end of the film we saw John Jacob Astor. And there's a article, you can hold this gently like this. It says here, it says, passengers of great wealth, men on the Titanic of fortunes and tens of millions, total riches of first class cabin loss could reach over $500 million. And that was in 1912. And it really makes me think how much that is in today's money. But what I found interesting also was the thing with Molly Brown. Everybody says she was unsinkable. Well, she proved that because, unlike the Titanic, she did not sink. Also, we saw a documentary, the three of us, me, you, and Scott, and it was an inquest from 1912 with the actual people who were on board the Titanic, the crew that survived. The inquest in London asked them what happened to determine who was responsible for the flaws and eventual downfall of the Titanic. And I found it very interesting that the guy in charge of engineering okayed a lower quality steel, which was actually not the best iron available, because there was one higher above it that was only a few pounds more. And had he done that, I think it may have actually survived. The other thing that we found out was the other designer of the ship, he sacrificed the design of the ship over practicality. He said that there was a necessity for 48 lifeboats, and they decided on, I think it was 16. And the other thing that they regretted was they lowered the bulkheads by a few meters. Had they not done that, the water level would have been higher and the rivets would have held, they said. So I don't think Captain Smith was entirely to blame. I think he was responsible in some ways because he had the ultimate say on the ship. As he said, when you're on board a ship, the captain is God. And it just made me think the way that he described the icebergs and everything, they were drifting far more south than they ever had, so it was a complete shock. They thought they were completely out of the alley, but they were not, as we know. And also, the only other thing that I found interesting is we saw this interview with this guy from 1976 or 79? 79, named Frank Prentice, who was actually 23 years old. While he was on board the Titanic, he was working on the ship, and his pocket watch stopped at 2:20 a.m. He said he went into the water around 2 a.m. and it stopped around 2:20, and he showed his pocket watch, and he said he hadn't thought about it in years, but he's probably going to have a nightmare tonight. I don't know, he would probably have been in his early 90s at the time. And the only other thing that I found really interesting about that was his accounts of the lifeboats and how filled they were and how not filled they were. I found it interesting.
Don't forget the last surviving.
Oh, yes. We also saw in the inquest documentary, we also saw the last survivor of the Titanic. She was 97 when she passed, and the film came out, I think, 6 months before she passed. She was 9 or 10 weeks when the Titanic sank.
Yeah.
And what was her name? Frank.
Oh, I don't remember her name.
I can't remember. Do you remember her name? Whatever her name was, God bless her. She was 97 when the Titanic, when she passed, and she was the last survivor of the Titanic. So I wonder if that may be the inspiration for Old Rose. That's a thought. And one thing that you asked that a lot of people think about is whether or not Jack let go at the end. Or why did he not hang on? You know? My honest opinion about that controversial ending is he and Rose were both holding on to the wood, but I think he let go because he froze. I think his fingers literally froze on him as he was drowning, and he just sank and lost his grip off the wood. That is my opinion about why Jack did not survive. I think he was really, really close to survival, but it just wasn't in the stars. And in my research, I remember showing you guys the newspaper. There was actually a J. Dawson on board the Titanic. I don't know about Rose. I wish I knew what her last name was from the film so I could look it up. But it was intriguing to me.
Dawson was actually Joseph Dawson.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's also the name of my favorite character in Highlander, the series. He was the Watcher, Joe Dawson. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But without further ado, I pass it right back up to the man upstairs, the man in charge, Mr. Buttercup.
Oh, and before, something else I forgot to mention. Gloria Stewart, who plays Old Rose. When I first saw it, I thought it was Kate Winslet in old woman's makeup, but nope, it was actually Gloria Stewart. She plays Old Rose quite
Convincingly.
Beautifully convincing. Yeah, and she actually died. She's playing a woman about 101, and she actually died at the age of 100. So it makes her, she was about 87 when she did that film, and she was good too. It's really sad that this disaster occurred, that so many people lost their lives because they just wanted a vacation and have fun, and they got disaster instead. But in a way, this disaster helps other.
The bottom part has the actual number, I think.
In a way, this disaster helped prevent other disasters in history, shipping disasters, and then they're doing their best not to repeat their mistakes. So, from what I hear, from what I'm reading about, 675 souls saved. Out of 1,800 souls lost. That's a sad one.
It turned out roughly, I think there was 2,200 people on board, we think.
Yeah, about 2,200.
And 600 and something survived. That's it.
Yeah, but the movie was good. I give it a 10 out of 10. All the actors give a great performance, and like I said, it was in theaters for a good while. It was for a good while. It was hard to bounce out a number one place. It was about as long in theaters as the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze was. That was a tough count. So hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, I'll catch you later. Please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.